Here's an example of a numbers kind of word puzzle. So this one says the sum of the squares of two consecutive odd numbers is equal to 514. What are the two numbers? So there's two kinds of informations. There are consecutive odd numbers, such as 3, consecutive odd numbers, so like 7 and 9, or 9 and 11, or 11 and 13. And when I square both numbers, I get 514. All the problems we're going to start by defining our variables. So that would be let statements, or a diagram that will let us know what A and like L and W, etc., etc. So in this case, we're going to say let A represent the smaller number. We need to put units on it, but since it's numbers, we don't need that in this case. And let B represent the bigger number. So I know in the back of my mind that my A should be a bigger number than my B. So how do I set this up? It's all worked out right now. I just go little by little. So what do I know? I know that my numbers are consecutive and they're like 9 and 7, 7 and 9, so they're 2 apart. So A plus 2, giving me the small number plus 2, will give me B, and that makes sense. Now I also know that the square of the two numbers added together gives me 514. So what we're going to do is we're going to substitute that B for A plus 2. And now we have that A squared is equal to A plus 2 squared equals to 514. Now we're just going to do a little bit of algebra to solve that function. And let's think about it for a second. The question never said anything about initial, never said anything about max or min, which means we're looking for the zeros. I know that to look for the zeros, I need to move something over to the left side so that I have an equal 0. Every time I see equal 0, it means I'm looking for the zeros. So I expand this, I got these 3 terms, put these two A's together, becomes 2A, and then the 514 comes to the other side as minus 514. If you need to stop the video, by all means, please make sure that you can follow these steps. But basically, I end up with 2A squared plus 4A minus 510. So now I have a choice. I can factor and solve, or I can use quadratic formula. Now, I always take common factor regardless of what I'm going to do. So 2A squared plus 2A minus 255. And then I decide if I'm going to try to do, this is a simple trinomial, so if I can find two numbers that multiply to 255 that are 2 apart, then I'm set. If not, I'll use quadratic formula. Now in this case, I checked with my calculator, and the two numbers were 17 and 15, which means that I can write it as A plus 17 and A minus 15. I gotta make sure that the signs work, right? So one's positive, one's negative, and then the bigger number was positive. So there's my answer, 2. That 2, I can actually move it over to the other side and say 0 divided by 2, so I can get rid of it. But I just left it there, so you see that it got factored out. So my answers are A is equal to minus 17 and A is equal to 15. You may recall that the question said two consecutive integers, and these are not consecutive integers. One's minus 17 and the other one's 15. Sorry, consecutive odd numbers. They're both odd, but they're not consecutive. And that's because we found two sets of answers. My first answer was minus 17. So if you remember, our B was A plus 2. So minus 17 plus 2, it's minus 15. And that's one set of answers. So minus 15 and minus 17 are two consecutive odd numbers that when I square them, I get the 514, I think it was. And my other set of numbers is this one, 15 plus 2. So B is equal to 17. So I actually had two possible sets of numbers. It could have been minus 15 and minus 17, or it could have been positive 15 and positive 17 as my two numbers. When you do find zeros, you will always find two sets of answers. Sometimes one answer will not make sense, and then you'll say it's not applicable. But when you're just talking about numbers, any number is actually possible. So our two answers are right. We need to put our final answer, so we say therefore the two numbers can be either 15 and 17 or negative 15 and negative 17.